Hello everyone, my name is Armand Monserrate and my American Like Me project is centered around Randall Park's entry. A little bit of background history before. Randall Park is an American actor born in 1974 and he's known for his comedic roles in movies such as Neighbors and Ant-Man and his most popular show Fresh Off the Boat. And his entry is centered around his detailing of his relationship with his parents and how he found out about a lot of their past through an interview that he had because of his opportunity to submit an entry like this for American Ferrera's American Like Me. A really common strategy in analyzing text like this is the PASS approach, or it's an acronym for Purpose, Audience, Situation, Speaker. Basically breaks down the most important parts of the text or speech that affects the presenter's way of presenting the message. The purpose, what is the author trying to tell the audience, what is his message that he's trying to give off? The audience in general, who are they, and is the speaker or writer trying to educate them, inform them, persuade them? What is he trying to do based off of the audience's beliefs or backgrounds or expectations? The situation is the problem at hand that's being discussed. What is the issue that's going on? What is the topic? Whether it ranges from this and that to something else, it is what is mainly being discussed, and how does that affect what the message is? And who is the speaker themselves? Are they a funny person? Are they very serious? Who are they? Who are they through their personality and how they present themselves? And how does that affect how the audience gets that message and analyzes it? How did Randall do it? How did he come up with his entry? He's a really great conversational person. You could see it through his writing. And of course, with his comedic background, he's bound to add a little bit of humor here and there. But he basically uses these strategies, devices, and appeals. For strategies, he uses a lot of description, and he also uses a lot of compare and contrasting of different events and different accounts from himself and his parents. And he also narrates his own feelings and thoughts throughout very well. Some devices he uses is diction that create really good imagery, and he uses subtle nodes of humor through a little bit of irony, but he also alludes to America Ferrera herself, using some of her works that she's done before, like The Sisterhood or The Traveling Pants. And finally, some appeals that he uses, mainly it's pathos, where he gives the reader a window into his own mind and heart, letting them understand his experience and his feelings throughout hearing all of this new information from his parents. So, to start the entry, Randall introduces us to the topic that he's writing about, his Korean immigrant parents, and how he got close to them in general, their struggles, their sacrifices, what happened for him to finally understand this. The next page, in paragraphs 3 through 6, there's a comparison between immigrant families and his own, that his parents worked really hard to provide for him. That was their way of affection, something that a lot of immigrant families can relate to. He uses this throughout the text. And also he uses a juxtaposition of himself being a father now, being able to understand his parents, and being more questioning of what happened in their past, and being more enforcing of questions of it. But when he enforces these questions, he comes off, even though he says that he's an adult now, he's a father, he has experience, he describes his way of asking in a very childlike manner, asking a long series of questions, sounding really curious. In the next page, Randall uses an approach to cracking his parents' barrier. He describes it that he strategizes by talking through his mom, and he gives these subtle nodes of imagery through explaining his childhood and how his mother surrounded him with a lot of art and a lot of her hobbies when he was little. And she's a lot more easy to talk to and more open than his dad, who was more busy on working outside of the house and providing for the family. And there's still a couple compare and contrasts about how his parents were more open to giving him the information as soon as he offered this interview compared to before, how they're a lot more closed off in his childhood. The next page, from paragraphs 12 to 15, there's a more shocking tone that Randall uses after he gets this first piece of information from his parents, talking about their where they came from in Korea, and it's a new step that he's finally going to be able to get some insight on his parents. He also builds another contrast in between how his parents met and how he met his wife. In page 53, paragraphs 16 through 18, his mother describes what it was like moving to America from Korea, and it's very emotional. She talks about her depressive and sad state and the hardship she went through to raise, not only just raising her children, but also trying to adapt to the new American environment. And Randall says it himself that this theme of struggle seems to permeate throughout the entire interview. You know, the entry takes a sudden shift into a more melancholy type tone, and it gets a lot more serious. You know, it paints a picture of the different moods and types of atmospheres that this entry creates through the different words that he uses, and it reflects his feelings throughout the interview. Page 54, from paragraphs 19 to 23, his mother explains again more of her mental and physical hardships that she went through, and it is followed by a common story about how Randall's parents, they were able to learn English and adapt more through television and media, something that a lot of immigrant families can also relate to through their own ways of learning more about English and adapting to the new area that they immigrated to. Page 55, paragraphs 24 to 27, his parents recall his plea for accepting in Randall becoming an actor, and them being a little skeptical at first. New experience, their child wants to do something that they didn't expect him to do, and they're just worried that he'll be going through the same hardships they went through, and they obviously don't want that. Something that a lot of kids of immigrants can relate to. Something interesting here is that the person to tell him, Randall, even though they expected a lot of hardships with him becoming an actor, that his father, actually, the one that was more closed off, was the one to tell him, in the interview at least, that him and his wife, his parents, are extremely proud of his success and everything. And it's sort of like a juxtaposition again, how someone who's so closed off would give such a sentimental statement to Randall. And again, Randall expresses more of his emotions through different descriptions of how he felt and his reflections while he went through this interview. Finally, on the last page, Randall closes his entry with his goodbyes to his parents and ending the interview. And Randall gives a little bit of humor, here and there. But he also describes to the reader specifically that, there's more to the interview than the reader gets to see, but there's a sentiment to it. But there's a reason for that sentiment, that having this experience with his parents is almost like a big milestone for him. And it's something that would obviously be a big milestone for anyone else. And he encourages the reader here, to you, I say, collect your own stories from your parents and your grandparents, your guardians and your mentors. He's basically telling the reader and giving his message that this is a great experience, something that will connect you to the people that you really love, and you'll be able to pass on to other people you really love. That will be, the next generation, that you guys will have a great interconnectedness. The final structure of Randall's entry, his purpose, he wants to encourage the reader to be more curious about their parents' past, build a greater connection, how important this experience is. His specific audience, he mainly probably tries to appeal to immigrant families, like immigrant children, immigrant parents, grandparents, mentors, stuff like that, so they could have almost a relating experience to the certain events and explanations he brings up. The situation was trying to get to know his parents and how his emotions throughout shifted and with how amazing it was to finally be able to be connected with his parents in a way. And the speaker himself, Randall, his delivery is really insightful, giving his little nodes of humor, and it's a great explanation of what it's like to hear this information for the first time, and his shift in emotions throughout, and the shifts in tone throughout the entry is something that, again, the audience might be able to relate to. Some people that have already done this with their parents and built their relationship. There's a lot of shakiness that involves with it, but in the end, it's a great experience for everyone, and for everyone to stay connected and build their relationship. Thank you guys for watching, and thank you to Mr. Barreto for giving me this opportunity to analyze this text. Have a great day, everyone.